Oh, hi everybody, and welcome to the first installment in one of our favorite series, the Meet Our Colleges webinars. My name is Selena Lopez. I'm a program associate here on the high school outreach team. And before we get started, I want to remind our attendees that you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to ask questions specifically for our panelists. So we'll be going through some of our questions first, and then we'll go through y'all's questions in the Q&A box. In this session, we do encourage you to aim your questions to our college partners that are here with us today. Questions that are about the application process will be dismissed. So if you have those specific application questions, you can reach out to us at questions@questbridge.org. Our team is always working on those emails, so I promise that we will get to your emails eventually. And the session will be recorded and it'll be shared on YouTube. So if you need to leave early or if you need to, hop on and off, you're more than welcome to do so, and you can catch the rest of the recording on YouTube. So today we are doing Meet Our College's Small Town Charm, and we are joined by Anna, Tiffany, and John. So we're going to have each of you introduce yourselves by sharing your name, your role at your institution, your college and where it's located, and anything else about yourself that our students might like to know about you to get to know you better. And we'll go in the order that is on the screen here. So we'll start with you, Anna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Richardson. I like she, her, hers. I'm one of the senior assistant directors of admissions at Oberlin, but I'm also the coordinator of multicultural recruitment. I do a lot of the QuestBridge stuff. I am also an alumni of Oberlin, and I was born in Houston and lived in Oregon, and I never thought I'd live in a small town, but here I am, and I love it. I'm so really excited to be here with you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Capella Barlow. I'm one of the assistant directors of admissions at Skidmore College. I use she, her pronouns. We're located in Saratoga Springs, New York, so upstate, about 3 hours from New York City. I'm also a Skidmore alum. I graduated in 2019. I grew up in New Jersey, and I also didn't think that I'd be in upstate New York for my career after college.
Awesome. Hi, all. My name is Sean Wolfgang, he, him, his. I'm an assistant director of admissions at Washington and Lee University. We are located in Lexington, Virginia, so like the Shenandoah Valley, Central Virginia, like 3 hours away from DC. I am not an alum of my institution. I attended a different Quest partner institution, although I was not a Quest scholar, but I was first gen, low income Pell eligible. And in addition to like the specific territories I work with, I'm the QuestBridge coordinator on campus, and then I also work with first gen and rural students. So if you have any kind of specific questions about those, I'd love to hear them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. So like I said, we have some prepared questions for you all, and then we'll go through that Q&A box at the end. So my very first question is, can you tell us a little bit more about the small town that your college is part of? Like, how big is it and what does it have to offer? And we can go ahead and start with you, Anna.
Yeah, this is perfect because I totally forgot to say where Oberlin is. But Oberlin is actually located in Oberlin, Ohio. So the town and the college were actually founded together. So they've never really existed without the other. We're around 45 minutes from downtown Cleveland and probably 20 minutes from like some smaller suburbs. So there's like a Trader Joe's, But I do think Oberlin has a ton of things to offer. As the college that's connected to the town, of course, we have a top 5 art museum that's on our campus that's free to people. We also have a really renowned conservatory of music that's open to the public, as well as a public library. There's like 10 different restaurants in town. There's a Thai food place with a guy who is actually from Thailand as the chef, as well as like an arboretum and a bunch of things. So it is a small town, but it does have a lot of amenities as well as Apollo Theater. So you can watch the new movie Twister, which is a lot of wild weather going on up here. So kind of fitting. But you can watch that for $6 in town at Oberlin. So that's just a few of the things that we have to offer directly off just what's entertaining in our town. So, yeah.
I feel like that's one of the things that goes unsaid about small towns is the smaller, like cheaper prices, right? To do things like the movie theater for $6 would be crazy in LA. What about you, Tiffany?
Yeah, so Skidmore is located in Saratoga Springs. So as I mentioned, about 3 hours from New York City, but also 3 hours from Boston and Montreal. We're, very close to the heart of Saratoga Springs, so we're only about a 15-minute walk. And we also have a free bus system that works free for students with their student ID that will bring them to downtown Saratoga Springs and neighboring towns. We have over 100 different restaurants. It's because we're so known for our racetrack. So Saratoga Springs is very much known for the oldest continuously run thoroughbred racetrack in the country. So that runs from mid-July to early September. And our population normally during the year is around 30,000. But during the summer months, during that 6-week period, about triples to quadruples to 90 to 120,000, which is pretty crazy. So there's a lot to do downtown, not only during the summer, but also during the academic year. We have our Saratoga Performing Arts Center. So we have an outdoor amphitheater. It is known to have the New York City Ballet and Philadelphia Orchestra have residency every summer, but also bigger name artists like Noah Kahan was here last fall, Post Malone's coming this fall, as well as I was able to see Kendrick Lamar a few years ago. So there's a wide variety of things to do. And one of the nicest things is that our students are able to have all of the benefits of being a part of a small town that doesn't shut down once school is over, because Saratoga is so independent of the college itself.
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a unique perspective. There are definitely lots of college towns that do essentially like shut down when, all the students leave. What about Lexington?
Yeah, so our small town is not 100,000 people. So Lexington is 8,000 permanent residents, and then there's actually 4,000 college students because Lexington is the smallest town in America with 2 separate 4-year degree granting institutions. We're right next door to Virginia Military Institute. And so that means that there's a lot more restaurant variety than you would expect to find in a town of our size. Same thing as Anna, everyone shouts out the Thai food place in town, and Napa Thai does, in fact, rock. There's a really thriving kind of art scene as well. I am the least artistically talented person on the planet. I got a D in my last real art class in 8th grade, but it's still cool to just kind of walk through the downtown and get to see the exhibits and galleries. And walking through downtown is really easy. We're 2 blocks away from downtown. So like our campus is directly connected to Lexington. They have there's a really strong connection between WNL and Lexington because we've been around for so long. I mean, we're the 9th oldest institution in the country, so we've grown with Lexington and Lexington has really grown with us. And so I think that's why there's so much kind of connection. As far as the local area, if students want that kind of more urban experience, we're about 45 minutes away from Roanoke. We're about an hour away from 3 different undergraduate institutions with 25,000 undergraduates at them. So UVA, James Madison, and Liberty, which means it's kind of a thriving college environment. Again, like the musical acts are doing tours through here. I have colleagues who are very excited to see Vampire Weekend play this September. But right in Rockbridge County, so where we're located, there's a really strong, again, kind of performing arts scene in terms of like the symphony orchestra. A lot of our students and one of my colleagues is heavily involved with. The Lime Kiln Theater has a lot of great acts coming through as well. And then our students love the outdoors. Like we're tucked in between 2 pockets of the George Washington National Forest. So this is truly like a gorgeous area to be if you kind of want to stretch your legs, get out, do some hiking, do some kayaking, whatever it is. So yeah, our students take advantage of both the town of Lexington and kind of the local communities in a lot of different ways.
That's awesome. The idea of a small town charm, right? It might not be something that's familiar to people who aren't from small towns or, who may be from bigger cities, right? So what do you think makes a small town of your college charming in and of itself? And we'll start again with you, Anna.
Yeah, small town charm was something it took a while for me to figure out what that meant for sure. But what's really nice about living in a small town and also going to college there is Oberlin specifically, we're very similar to WNL, but we have around 10,000 people that are in the town of Oberlin and then around 3,000 students. And so a lot of our town is directly connected, which means a lot of our professors live in town. Like I walk to work. It's really easy. You don't like need a car to get anywhere in town. A lot of people will be on bikes to get anywhere that they need to go, but it's also a community. So you not only get kind of that community that you have in your classes and your different things like that, but there's a lot of ability to be involved in like the middle schools and the high schools. To like, for me, I used to do a lot of community service. So I did service at Lexington, one of the middle schools. And now, since I've been at Oberlin long enough, I've watched those students kind of grow up through middle school and now go to college. And having those deep, deep connections that even go further than academia is super, super special. But again, it's that idea, you can see all the different seasons changing. You don't have to commute anywhere. It's kind of low stress when it comes to that. You have a lot of access to everything you need just kind of right there versus having to take a bus or having to do a lot of that extra stuff that you might have to do in a larger town. So it really does have that kind of homey vibe, where you're meeting a lot of new people, of course, but you're also able to be part of this direct community.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Tiffany?
So I think Skidmore is great in the sense that we have Saratoga Springs so close. Being able to walk to and from campus to downtown is awesome. On the weekends, we have farmers markets and multiple locations. So you always see students as well as professors out, just walking around with their dogs, big dog town. So that's always, really nice and exciting for our students and for myself. But we're also about 15 minutes from the base of the Adirondacks. So it's great that, if students are really outdoorsy people, Adirondack State Park is the largest state park in the country. So people have access to that as well. There's a lot of food things that go on around Saratoga Springs. We have multiple food festivals where they shut down a portion of the main road, Broadway, and restaurants make their own versions of chowder, from fish food ice cream from Ben and Jerry's to a traditional New England clam chowder, Manhattan clam chowder. Indian and Thai restaurants make their own versions. And for non-chowder lovers, there are also, dessert chowders besides that fish food ice cream, but doing more sweet like tiramisu chowders. It's really a fun time that there's a lot of events that our students can get involved in. And similar to Anna saying, it's really a community. Our students are always downtown working, whether that's doing work in coffee shops or, doing an internship or part-time job downtown, that there is a very close connection between the town itself and the college.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm a little hung up on the fish food ice cream, so I'm very curious about that one. But what about you, John?
Yeah, I think for me, when I think of small town charm, it has less to do with like the stuff available and more the people that you interact with.
Yeah.
Again, kind of going back to what Anna said, just in terms of like the connections you can form. I know that's definitely kind of how I feel in Lexington. So it's just a really like warm and welcoming community. I think part of that, so W&L has something called the speaking tradition, where when you cross paths with people on campus, they look up, they say hi, they ask you how your day is going. And that's something that we've had for 150 years. And so the entire town of Lexington has kind of started to adopt it, except the Keydets at VMI. They can be a little bit more stone-faced. We do accept that from them. It's like, yeah, you're in uniform, I get it. But that's been really nice to me. I went to college in New York City. We had the opposite of a speaking tradition on my campus, in my community. So it's just really cool that like when you're walking down the street here, people look up, they kind of smile. It doesn't mean you're spending 5 minutes talking with everyone you cross paths with, but you do feel more comfortable kind of making those connections. And especially as someone who's a little bit of a natural introvert, it's really nice to be in an environment where you are encouraged to kind of go outside yourself a little bit, form these connections. And then in a small town, yeah, you're going to bump into people at a lot of different places. So you're going to get to kind of reiterate upon those connections. And it's really cool. It's something that I know as kind of a new member of the community, I value. I know my colleagues who went here for undergrad and then have continued to stay at W&L post-graduation have really valued. And I think it's something that like all my colleagues on this call would echo, that it's like, it's the people you get to interact with that is what makes a small town kind of charming.
Mm-hmm. No, I absolutely would echo that. I went to a smaller town school as well, and also a Questbridge partner, and the idea of like being able to wave to anybody that you see walking on campus, like it makes such a big difference because you always feel seen, right? You always feel like you're a part of the community. But now, one of the things that students may associate with small towns is, smaller opportunities. So do you feel like that's true at your institution? Are there any unique opportunities that your institution offers that really challenges that assumption?
Yeah, I would say no. Small town does not mean smaller opportunities. First, what I'll say is just speaking for Oberlin, we are a very, very busy and connected campus. So like other places, we bring in all those really cool artists, like the Cleveland Symphony always comes down to town. We put on 2 full operas, all of these types of things. But there's also a ton of like work study jobs on campus. Like you can work from every aspect of the college, from admissions to working in the cafeteria to working in town. Usually a lot of our students have multiple jobs. They're usually involved in multiple different clubs. So we have 200 different clubs that are on campus, and then all of the actual student activities at Oberlin are ran by our student finance committee. So we have around $500,000 to do student activities, and there is a student body who governs and gives out that money. So if you ever had an idea of someone you wanted to bring, or you wanted to do a project, or you wanted to do any of that kind of stuff, you can literally create it and then go ask for the money from your peers, which is pretty cool. So one of my roommates got SZA to come to Oberlin for free for us, but it was like 50K that she got from Student Activity Board. So basically, when you're in a smaller place, there is a lot of resources and a lot of things that's going to kind of be focused in a smaller area for less people. So I'd also often say there's a lot more opportunities in some way. When you're thinking about research, we're an undergraduate institution, so all of the research that happens is with undergrads. So when you're thinking of some of those small schools, think of also you have less people to share some of those resources with. And then I will say for internships and that kind of stuff, we are 45 minutes from Cleveland, so there's all the Fortune 500 companies and all that stuff up there. But the other piece is you're usually so busy on some of these campuses that you're not doing internships during the year. You're typically doing them in the summer. You're doing them, for us, we have a winter term in January where you can do internships, but all the other things that you do can be directly connected to your school. So it's kind of that intentional community again, where you're really, really locked into your studies, you're really locked into the small town community that you're a part of without having a ton of other distractions, which can be really difficult if you're in like a larger city or doing those types of things. So I could talk on and on forever about this, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But if you want to know more, obviously we can chat some more later too.
Yeah, and I think students do have some questions about that already in the Q&A, so I think we'll touch on that later. What about you, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think, similar off of Anna, it's great that, Skidmore is an undergraduate institution. We have about 2,700 students in total. So it's, small enough where you're really able to have that community, but also, be able to have so many opportunities coming for you. Students can start doing research here as early as the second semester of their first year. We have research done in every academic department, from the sciences to the arts to the humanities, that it's not limiting in any way, and you don't have to be a major or minor to be able to be a part of research within that department. I think it's great, our campus too, we have 150 acres of woods connected to our campus. Through that, our environmental studies and sciences department does field work there. Being that, that's there, it's just a great resource for our students to not only be able to walk through and hike through, but also kind of utilize for their studies. We have an annual business competition here where students can submit their own individual business plans, and they can receive cash prizes of up to $20,000, as well as legal services and accounting services to create that business, to start that. And that's a really kind of great thing that Skidmore offers, as well as such a great alumni network where we often will invite partners, whether it be through classes that you're in for young alumni, or just that the college is bringing, so that you can talk to past students from Skidmore and say, how did you get from where you are today from Skidmore, and kind of looking at those opportunities that, smaller doesn't always mean smaller opportunities, but, a lot more ways to connect with people, both within the institution and outside of the institution.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. John?
Yeah, I mean, Ditto. All the same things about like undergraduate research being something that is a lot easier to do at an undergraduate centric institution. I think a lot of students find that to be the case. I think I want to reemphasize kind of the alumni connections point. That's one of the real benefits of attending a smaller institution, is that the alumni network is just going to be so tight knit and so engaged in the institution, right? I mean, speaking for WNL specifically, we were ranked #1 in the nation by the Wall Street Journal for percentage of alums who would recommend their alma mater to a high school senior. And basically what that means is people who went to WNL love their WNL experience. And I'm sure Anna and Tiffany have those kind of exact same sort of like stories and statistics at their institutions, right? I have a colleague who attended WNL for undergrad. She had 3 internships by the time she graduated, and each one came from a different alum of the institution. In fact, one of the alums was her alumni interviewer, and like as soon as he heard that she was going to WNL, he's like, "Hey, do you want to work here?" And so yeah, there's just so much passion when you have these communities. You get to hear about all of the opportunities happening. I think that's another one of the benefits of being a smaller institution located in kind of smaller areas, is that everything that's happening, you're going to have like a pretty direct connection to it, right? You're going to know someone or know someone who knows someone. And that means that the ability to get connected with the opportunities is so much easier to access than if you're talking about, again, you go to school in a city with 10 million people there or whatever, but it's 15 steps removed from you to even find some of those opportunities available. And so I think, yeah, not only is there kind of the excess of resources, and QuestBridge partners are really blessed as institutions to have resources outside to kind of the size of our institutions. And that allows us to like put them into, as Anna said, clubs. I'm the staff advisor for Club Ultimate Frisbee on campus. They just threw money at our club when we started it last year. We have 50 discs with our logo on it now. And it's like, what do we need these for? We really need like 1 disc. But it is just cool to see like what you kind of get access to at a small school.
Mm-hmm. No, I can definitely, yeah, all of these things ring so true. Like I said, as somebody who went to a small town school. But I'm guessing that a lot of students, even if they do go to a small town school, right, they might still want some of those opportunities in the city, or, things that are just a bit farther away. So are there any ways that your campus connects students with opportunities or resources that, might be farther away in the city, might be a long drive away and they don't have a car or something?
Yeah, and we're still just going in the same order, right?
Yeah, we can
Okay,
do
cool.
that.
I just didn't want to start it. So yeah, at Oberlin, one cool thing that we do to kind of get people familiarized with what's around Oberlin is during orientation, we actually ship all of our first years out to Cleveland, and you do community service up there, and you get to like have some mingling and get to kind of hear about some other things that are going on in Cleveland. So with the 2nd largest theater district outside of New York City, it's an exciting place to be. But when you're in campus at Oberlin, we also do have some shuttles that run to a couple of the smaller areas of Cleveland, like Ohio City, that has like, ice cream and you can walk around by the water, do all that kind of stuff, as well as a couple other smaller areas around Cleveland. So you can do that. We also do have a bus that brings people to things like Walmart and CVS. Walmart's only like a mile away, but if you want to go to Target down the way, it's like 20 minutes. And so they will have a shuttle that takes people there. And we also do have an electric car system that is in Oberlin mostly. And so the town of Oberlin is a lot bigger than the actual campus. So it kind of spreads out a little bit. So there's another one that does just the town with electric cars. And then finally, we do have, through Enterprise, we have a car share system in the town of Oberlin. So you can rent out the car. I think it's $30 a day. So you and your friends can rent it out. You don't have to be 25, like you might have to be for real rental cars. And so if you're 18, you have your license, you can kind of take that for the day with your friends to go up there. So a lot of things there. But over fall break, we also have a couple trips that'll take you to the Cuyahoga National Valley. So there's a bunch of different really cool parks. There's Fenway Park that's 40 minutes away that people will bring groups out there as well to kayak and rent boats and things. So a lot of ways to get off campus here. But I will say typically most of our students are actually in the town of Oberlin most of the time. People come in and say, oh, I want to make sure I can get to Cleveland. And then all of a sudden you're so busy and not wanting to miss out on something that you're just kind of thriving in your small little town. So yeah.
That's super cool though. I mean, even though, even if students will stay near Oberlin, like it's just cool to know that that's there, like the Enterprise or like the electric vehicles. That's super cool. Yeah.
So for Skidmore, similar to what Anna was saying, we actually own fleet vehicles. So we have multiple vehicles that students can rent out for free to go to internships, being that we're about 30 minutes from Albany, so the capital of New York. A lot of our students will do, political science internships down there. Being able to use it for internships locally, club events. So we have a huge ultimate frisbee team here on campus. Shout out to John. So they will go and use, the larger vehicles to be able to kind of bring the team to any tournaments locally or out of state. So it's really nice that students have those opportunities to use them. Only requirement is to have not necessarily, but a license, a driver's license. Those are important things. But you don't have to be 25, anything like that. So it's really great that way. I mentioned the free bus system that runs from our campus. So that will run to downtown Saratoga Springs. That will also run to our neighboring town of Wilton. So that's where you'll find Walmart, Target, Panera, Five Guys, Chipotle, all the good stuff for where students want to be. But also if you're looking to go further down to Albany or Schenectady, that bus will take you down there as well. And then we also have a train station, bus station, and airport out of Albany, which is all very close, and the bus will bring you there for free as well. But, being able to have transportation is great. You definitely don't need a car here. It's very easy to get around, which is nice. But one of the things that I took advantage of, and I know friends of mine took advantage of here at Skidmore, is that they will often run trips to larger cities. So Boston and New York City and Montreal for either free or a heavily discounted price. So $10 to $20 that they'll bring you there and back. And you get to kind of explore those cities if you've never been before, or see family or friends who might be living there. So it's nice that kind of they provide all of these services for you, whether or not they're free or, for a minimal fee.
That's so cool that they'll take you to Canada. So students, if you're applying to Skidmore, definitely get your passports ready if you can. What about you, John?
Yeah, so again, I think with the way the loop is, you're going to hear me say, oh yeah, same a lot of times. But it's definitely true, and there are going to be some of those like more formalized ways in which our students are able to use institutional resources to kind of get around. Again, like we have an agreement with Enterprise Rent-A-Car as well. We're constantly putting on trips to the local areas. I think one of the ones that isn't kind of a direct overlap with what something has already said that WNL does is just being intentional about the big cities we're close to and having our students go there for longer periods of time. So one of our study away options that we have is a 6-week Washington term. So it's really appealing for students interested in politics, business, kind of making use of those cities. And I'm certain that Tiffany and Anna have like similar things happening at their schools. But I just think like as far as redundancy, I figured I'd cover it. And then I think the other thing, like I mentioned, we talked about a lot of formal stuff. There is no easier place to bum a ride than on a small college campus. Like you can just like ask your roommate, ask someone on your floor, like, hey, yeah, do you want to go get coffee? Do you want to do X? You want to do Y? And if it's a little further away, then yeah, they're going to be happy to drive you. Or if it's closer, you can kind of just like travel as a pack in a walking group or whatever. Or like we have a bike rental program run by our outdoor club on campus. So you literally just like use your ID to like swipe a bike out. You can take it wherever you want. You can bring it back whenever you want. There's no time limit on it. And so that helps with, again, if you're making a little bit further of a trip into like, yeah, you want to go to the Starbucks, which is on the edge of town compared to WNL right in the center. Maybe you bike ride there, but if you're going to the coffee shops downtown, you walk. Or if you want to travel to Roanoke, to Lynchburg, to Charlottesville, something like that, then you can use either like Pub Safe, their like rental vehicles, Enterprise, their rental vehicles, or just say like, Roomie, do you want to like go? You want to take me again to the Trader Joe's? It's like, sure, whatever.
Absolutely. I feel like in college, like if one of your friends has a car, that's not their car anymore. It's the friend group's car. So it's a collective car. Now my next question, I think that a lot of students might expect that at a small town or a small town school, you won't get as many diverse, people, backgrounds, perspectives, right? But I think that's totally possible at a small school, and I'm sure you all will share that. But what can students expect at your institution as it relates to diversity of student body, of perspectives and thoughts? And this time I'll start with you, John, so that we change up the flow.
Okay, well now I have to like actually come up with answers. This is difficult. So I think at WNL certainly the resources are going to be here to support, and it's like was kind of mentioned, like all of us as institutions have this national reach, and so you're going to be attending school with students from all over the country, all over the world. That's definitely true on WNL's campus. I want to say we're 47 different states represented. There's always like one Dakota kind of missing out, and 40 different countries. So you're going to get to talk with people from a lot of different backgrounds in that regard. We have a lot of resources and student clubs here on campus to make sure that those perspectives can be celebrated, and moreover that they kind of get, again, the institutional support and the funding to have these really cool kind of cultural events, to have like community iftar dinners and stuff like that for our Muslim students. Our Hallel on campus is like absolutely popping off. And so really great place to get a kosher bagel. And so a lot of that stuff is happening. And then I think at WNL uniquely, you are going to get a lot of different perspectives. You're gonna like be friends with people who have different opinions to you. WNL, like there was a survey done by Nessie, which is like it's a educational statistics thing. As a student, you don't really need to dig that much more into it. But first year WNL students were polled, and 80% of them reported like having a conversation with someone who had a different political opinion to them. And that was significantly higher than the average amongst peer institutions. And so this is a place where if you want to learn from different perspectives, you're absolutely going to find that here, and you're going to find kind of that it is supported, that it is accepted at an institutional level. I mean, one of the biggest events we have on campus every 4 years is called MockCon. Students forecast the results for the presidential primary for the party that is out of power. So you don't get to dictate, right? You might be a Democrat, but if it's like this year, then MockCon is for the Republican Party. And so you can be politically aware, get involved, and really see things from a different person's perspective. And I think that is a philosophy a lot of WNL students are coming to campus with. And so it means that it's a really cool community where people want to like hear each other out. They want to learn more about people's backgrounds and opinions. And it's been cool for me to see, like, as an admissions rep, like seeing the students I recruit who I would never have expected to like connect and get along, kind of find that here.
Mhm. Yeah. What about you, Tiffany at Skidmore?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, people assume coming to a school in, upstate New York or more rural areas, kind of where all of our schools are represented, is that there isn't going to be diversity. But one of the things that I like to think about is that you are in a smaller community. So at Skidmore, we have about 2,700 students, and about 26% of our students are domestic students of color. So if you're in a classroom of average of 16 students, about a quarter of those students are going to be students of color. So representation might be more apparent in a smaller environment like that. About 13% of our students are first generation college students. So you're getting that perspective as well. And we currently have around 44 states represented. My year here at Skidmore, we had 50, which I thought was insane that we had, Dakotas and Alaska represented. But we also have 65 countries represented and over 60 languages spoken on our campus. So you're truly meeting students from all over the world. And with that, having those different perspectives, different viewpoints. And it's really interesting to kind of have that discourse, whether it's inside or outside of the classroom. Kind of similar to John, during election season, we have an on-campus teaching museum where our political science professors usually will host kind of like a panel where there'll be, at least one or two professors there who will be talking on the points during the debates to be able to kind of give students, perspective of like, hey, this is how it is historically, this is how it's been, but also being able to educate students on, what these policies mean, what topics of discussion are happening, and how that may impact you as, college students and for the future. So it's nice to be able to kind of be a part of community that's not afraid to discuss these things that are happening in our world. and how they're going to impact, not only college students, but also everyone within this community.
Then very similar to my colleagues. For Oberlin, we're again around around 3,000 students. It's around 40% of students that identify as a student of color, and that's including some of our international students. So if you look just domestic, it's around that 30%. So very similar. The big thing about a lot of these private schools, a lot of these Questbridge partners is most colleges are predominantly white. That's an unfortunate reality. But one thing that Oberlin has done really, really well is since our beginning of history, we were the first school to admit folks regardless of race and gender in 1837. So we have a lot of practice doing it. But today, what that kind of looks like is not only do we have really cool, diverse students, so almost all 50 states, very similarly. I think Idaho we might not have or something like that. But 10% of our students are also international. I mean, you're thinking about 95% of our students being outside of the state of Ohio, having sometimes more New Yorkers or Californians on campus. So in that way, it's definitely very diverse. And the campus doesn't feel like what the rest of Ohio might feel like because the people that are making it up are very different. But one of the big things today that we do is we do have a lot of identity-based, obviously, groups and things. It's over like 60 that are just connected to identity in some kind of way, as well as identity-based housing on campus. So we have things like African Heritage House, Latinx Heritage House, Women's and Trans House, as well as Jewish Heritage House. And I'm forgetting one of the houses, Asia House. I don't know if I said that already. But these are spaces that are dedicated to those students, kind of recognizing that sometimes it can feel a little bit alienating when you're used to being around your people all the time and you come to one of these predominantly white institutions and yes, you're sitting in class and the majority of the people might not look like you. Because of Oberlin's history, there's a lot of effort to kind of stay on top of that and continue to progress. So OBs are very politically active. There are a lot of people who are very into, protesting, being heard here. That's huge. It always has been huge at Oberlin. But of course, we are stereotypically a very liberal campus. I will say that. However, there are diverse opinions here, and not everybody is thinking the same. One example is our Republican student group is actually one of our only endowed student groups that we have at Oberlin. So every year they're guaranteed at least $20,000 to do whatever kind of programming or things that they'd like to do. And that is kind of in understanding that we do want to create a place that is still having a lot of those challenging conversations. But just because we're very liberal doesn't mean that people don't disagree. We disagree about a lot of things on a lot of different levels. But at Oberlin, we always say the things that seem like radical or wild to the world, they tend to kind of be the norms of society later on. So it's a really exciting place to kind of challenge things and have those really big conversations, but also be able to be connected with the actual administrations of colleges because of that kind of small space. So definitely diverse thoughts and everything. And there are some spaces that are just dedicated to students of color, as well as things like funding for research, et cetera. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, my last question, and then we'll hop over to the Q&A questions. Is this idea of college fit, right? So I at least I believe, and I'm sure many of you, and at least at Questbridge, we believe that this idea of college fit is really integral in that college application process, right? Because for students who may not know what college fit is, it's this idea of, how well does a college meet a student's needs and priorities, right? So at Questbridge and other college partners, including, the three here today, we want students to thrive no matter where they end up. So my question is, what kind of student do you think would thrive at your institution? And we'll start with Tiffany.
Loving the out of order. I would say students that would thrive at Skidmore are students who might want to do both things. We kind of say that Skidmore is a place that you can do both. We have all of our students come in undecided. For that reason, you have a lot of flexibility to explore academic opportunities in different departments. And about 2/3 of our students double major or major and minor. So you can go across academic disciplines. I have known dance majors who are also a neuroscience major. So they're double majoring, within the arts and within the sciences, that you have a lot of opportunity to explore things here, as well as having a self-determined major. So if there's not something that's, within our majors here, you can start your own. I would say, like, probably for many of, our colleagues here, open-minded students, open-minded to new ideas, different thoughts, but also being able to challenge what you know or what you think you know, I think is something that is, very common for, our college kind of experience and for growing up and maturing in the world. I would say also passionate. We are looking for passionate students who are involved within their communities, whether that's, your community in your household or your school community, local community. We want to be able to have students who feel as passionately as we do kind of within the school, to be able to fight for what you believe in and speak up for what you believe in, to be able to enact those changes. Just in the 5 years since I've graduated from Skidmore, I've seen so much change happen within the student body, and so much for the better, that our students have really spoken up and been able to make these changes happen. So I think, that's where kind of I stand with kind of things that I think where students would thrive here at Skidmore.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Yeah, so I think at WNL, students who are seeking us out, oftentimes they're seeking out that really personal kind of trusting community. So WNL has something called the honor system. It's an entirely student-run, again, kind of like code of conduct. Only the thing is, there's not a 200-page honor document. Students have to go through line by line to figure out what isn't allowed. It's just like, upon my honor, I acknowledge that I have neither given nor received unwarranted help on this exam, that sort of thing. But because it's an student like administrated system, it means there's a lot of real privileges the students get. Exams on campus are unproctored. And so I think students who want to be a part of a community where that's kind of the norm, students who are fully kind of bought into that idea. Those are the students who really succeed on our campus. And then same thing, I had mentioned kind of the speaking tradition earlier, but I think that goes hand in hand with the honor system. Like, students who are open to forming connections kind of at the drop of a hat, right? And students who are interested in growing in that direction. Like I said, WNL isn't a place for people who are extroverts necessarily. It's a place for people who want to be more extroverted, right? And so I think it's a really great kind of community for someone who it's like, yeah, I'm naturally a little bit quiet, but I really do kind of thrive on these social connections. I want to find a place where I'll kind of feel supported, and like I won't feel like a weirdo when I ask to pet people's dogs. And like WNL is kind of the perfect little community for that. And then I also think students who want to be leaders and want to take action. Something that is uniquely true at smaller institutions compared to larger institutions is just, we need our students to get involved. Like the way that we are able to have, again, 200 clubs on campus, just like Oberlin, is because all our students are willing to get involved and kind of start something when they see it. Whereas if you're talking a school of 45,000 students or whatever, if you don't want to get involved with your passions, there are going to be 200 people there ready to take your place. And so you can kind of get away with not, again, getting involved. That doesn't really happen at a small school, because all your friends are going to be so involved. They're going to be dragging you to these different kind of clubs. And so I think students who are really interested in doing that, really interested in getting to take the initiative and not have to wait for the administration to tell them they can do something, people who just kind of feel comfortable saying like, okay, you gave us the money, we are going to execute. Like, we have the skills here ready to do that. And that's why our students like pull off such incredible things when it comes to like the events that we have happening here on campus, the ideas that they're kind of constantly formulating and bringing to the administration here, the faculty members here. And so, yeah, I think students who want to be tapped with those sorts of responsibilities are the students who can kind of hop into WNL immediately and get the most out of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing all your insights. Oh, wait, Anna, sorry. I got ahead of
I'll keep it
myself.
short, don't worry.
No. Take your time.
Yeah, I think for Oberlin, echoing a lot of the things that are said here, 60% of our students are double majors. So I studied neuroscience and psychology at Oberlin. So an example of that. But what I will say is a lot of people are attracted to Oberlin, because they want to be a doctor, they want to be a lawyer, they don't want to do research, but they also want to figure out how they can do their job with a positive impact on the world. Like that's our whole tagline. Think one person can change the world, so do we. So that kind of is part of the ethos of like Oberlin is, yeah, you could be in finance, but how am I going to give back in that way? So if you have that mindset, you'll definitely fit in well here. Collaboration is huge at Oberlin. No great scientific breakthrough has ever happened from one single person doing something. So we kind of start you on that early, thinking of that being compassionate and also being competitively compassionate. So you do want to be your best version of yourself, but you also want to bring other people along with you. That's huge at Oberlin. And then finally, I will say music is huge here. So if you're someone who is interested in music, you want to continue to play music, or you just like hearing music, there is a ton of it here. And that is something that really does attract people because, again, they want to do those fancy things, but they could never imagine their life without music. If you're not a musician, don't worry. I also was not, but saw some really cool things. And then finally, kind of that interest in like interdisciplinary like studies, definitely getting that in-depth view of what you want to study, but also being able to pull from a lot of different spaces and kind of work on your creative thinking, your problem solving, and some of those skills that you're going to be having, 40 years after you leave a college. So those are definitely a few things, but definitely echo what everybody else said here.
Okay, now, thank you all so much for sharing all your incredible insights. It makes me want to be a student again. I hope that some of the students in today's webinar feel like they could belong at your institutions. And so now, like I promised, we're going to transition over to some of the questions from the Q&A. Like I said, we might not be able to get to every single question. There are a good number in here, and we only have about like 10 minutes or so left. But I am seeing a lot of questions about academics, right? And that's something that we haven't exactly touched on too much in today's panel. So I am curious, I'm pretty sure that most of you all are liberal arts colleges, right? So how does that impact your approach to academics? I see some students here who want to know like popular majors at your school, right? So can you all talk a little bit about academics at your institution? And we can start with whoever would like to start. Yeah, go for it, John.
Yeah, so I think the tough thing about liberal arts is the liberal arts has done such a bad job of branding itself over the years that no one knows what it actually means, right? It's kind of like a Supreme Court style note when I see it sort of situation. The way I always kind of talk about it is that liberal arts is about the method and the meaning behind the instruction that a student is receiving, right? So at some institutions, you are getting a lot of very specific answers to very specific questions. At a liberal arts institution, you're getting these different ways of thinking. So you can find the answer no matter what question you come across. One thing I think a lot of people kind of glean from that, and ways that like some people talk about the liberal arts just in general, is that it is almost the opposite of like a pre-professional education. And I don't think that has to be the case. The liberal arts can be combined in a really effective way with making sure students get kind of these specific educational pathways, and also still getting kind of this interdisciplinary approach where you can take the classes you're interested in and not be locked in as soon as you enroll in a school and do exactly this 4-year track that everyone else in your major is following too. Like at W&L specifically, we're the highest ranked liberal arts school in the nation with an accredited business program. We're the only liberal arts school in the nation with an accredited journalism program. And we have a fully in-house 4-year engineering program that ends with a Bachelor of Science. So you don't have to get like a BA in engineering studies if you don't want, right? You can get these really rigorous pre-professional educations. But our students in those programs, we're still expecting them to take writing intensive courses. We're still expecting them to take quantitative reasoning courses and global perspectives courses. So our students get kind of this holistic education. The curriculum is flexible enough where it is really easy to double major to minor. Like the specific statistics at W&L, about a third of our students end up double majoring, over half have a minor. I'm sure those are very comparable to what Skidmore and Oberlin have in terms of the number of students pursuing passions and these unique trajectories that like some students wouldn't even think to be a possibility until they actually get into their college journey and figure out where they can kind of go. And then I guess as far as like WNL specifically, yeah, a lot of our students seek us out to major in things like business, politics. We have about 10% of our students on the pre-med track. So whether they're majoring in bio, biochem, neuro, just working with our pre-med advisor and like on the path to med school. And our placements for those things are really great, right? We have a 93% med school acceptance rate for first-time applicants. We have an over 90% law school acceptance rate. Again, liberal arts programs have the highest acceptance rates into graduate programs afterwards, because graduate programs really value students who have hands-on research experience, who have the ability to think critically and be flexible. And so I think you'll hear a lot of very similar numbers from my colleagues, but it's just something, it's a pet peeve of mine whenever I talk with students and they're like, oh, don't I have to go to like X state university if I want to be an engineer? It's like, no, please don't. You like go where you're going to be happy. And for a lot of students, that's a liberal arts school.
Yeah, very similar. For us, I think all liberal arts, you have to take all the different things. At Oberlin, we have kind of a model of engaged liberal arts. So same thing, you have to take classes in the different disciplines, and they might not all be exactly in your major, but there is flexibility. But for us, with our winter term, the month of January, which is dedicated solely to a project of your choice of any choosing, you are required to do 3 of those before you graduate. And so that's one way that you can kind of dip your toe into a field that you might think you're interested in, and maybe it turns out you're not as interested as you thought. That's something that's good to know before you're in your 4th and 5th or your 4th year at college and you're applying to med school and turns out you can't handle blood. Those are things you'd like to know. But on top of that, we also do offer Internship Plus. So we give $5,000 for low paid or unpaid internships at any point in your Oberlin career, whether that's in the summer or during a winter term. So there is a lot of access to kind of go out into the world and apply a lot of those skills, but to also get really into those specifics of what you want to do. We have creative writing, cinema studies, neuroscience, psych, all of that. But if you want to be a child psychologist, you want to kind of hone into that. And you can do that through internships, through winter terms, and then, of course, in the summers with other things as well. So I'll leave it at that because I know we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, so to kind of echo colleagues here, very holistic, academic approach. You're going to get a very well-rounded education. We're going to have soft skills that employers want to see, coming from a liberal arts school. So you're going to be very prepared for the world around you. For Skidmore, we have some of our most popular majors, number 1 being business and management. We have political science, studio art, environmental science and studies, biology, psychology. So having about a third of our students within the sciences, about a third within the arts, and about a third within the humanities and the social sciences there. It makes it nice that you have that flexibility, but also to be able to kind of feel out different things. Similar to Oberlin, we have something called the Summer Experience Fund. So if you are doing a low paying or unpaid internship, you can receive a stipend of up to $4,500. These usually happen during the summer months. You can receive it multiple times. And you can use that money as you'd like, whether that's saving that money for the academic year or to pay for rent or transportation if you're living in a city other than your hometown. We're very well connected, all of us here, to be able to provide those resources, but also to provide you that mentoring and support. Something that's unique about us is that you get to select your academic advisor once you declare your major. So you have someone who's supporting you through, your 4 years or so here, as well as having a second advisor if you're double majoring. So you have so much kind of supporting around you, both in academics and career goals as well.
That was needed. Now, another question that I see here, our QuestBridge applicants that are coming from low-income backgrounds, and so they're worried about having work-study jobs on campus. So what kind of resources are on campus for you all that could help students get those work-study jobs?
So I'll start off. Our first year students for work study will be working in our dining services. So that would be in either our dining hall on campus or other dining areas. So we have a cafe on campus, as well as kind of like a grill area as well. So being able to have that opportunity your first year. After that, you can work in any area for work study, whether that be, working in the library, working as a peer tutor, working in the sports center, admissions, be a tour guide. A lot of different opportunities. So, our student employment services will work with you to kind of find those opportunities if you're having difficulty. But we have a complete student employment system where you can search for jobs, search for open positions, and also be able to see, if they're looking for certain majors or requirements of students here on campus. So I'm sure that's pretty similar across, but being able to kind of find those opportunities, sometimes they're just presented to you, or you can do a little bit of research as well.
Yeah, at Oberlin, we don't have very similar, but as a first year, you can do whatever the heck you want to. And we let people do a lot of things. But one of the other cool things that we have outside of your traditional on-campus jobs all over the place is we have the Bonner Center for Community Engaged Learning. And so that's connected to a bunch of community partners, nonprofits in the town of Oberlin. And there's around, I think, 40 of them that are also work study positions. So you can do that. We're also a school that has a Bonner Scholars program. So you do a certain amount of community service and you also get a stipend for that. So depending on what schools you end up at, there are some other kind of cohort programs that could help with your work study as well. But tons of options. There's definitely no shortage of getting jobs here.
Yeah, we're likewise a Bonner partner school. And the cool thing about Bonner is you can be selected as a Bonner Scholar, even if you are a QuestBridge match. And so that exactly, you get that enhanced financial aid package and you do community service, which is really great for some students. Yeah, likewise, first year students, they work with one of my colleagues in financial aid, Miranda Edwards, and she helps connect them with various work study jobs here on campus. They can do basically anything, even as a first year student. We have a lot of first year work studies in the admissions office here. At WNL, we're a little bit unique in that we have the work study jobs, and then we also have institutionally funded non-work study jobs that you can also just kind of get regularly paid for. So for instance, in our office, like our administrative assistant students, they're work studies, but our tour guides are actually not work studies. But even if you have work study in your financial aid, you can apply for kind of those freelance jobs on campus. And a lot of the work study jobs aren't just general kind of generic things. You can relate them really specifically to what you're interested in. Our Office of Institutional History on campus has 20 work study students who are employed doing research on the institution. And you get to kind of dictate what that research is. There are some students, they did like a history of the math department. There was another group of students who looked at LGBTQ plus history throughout campus, the experiences of Black students throughout the campus's history. So really you can kind of dictate what you're interested in and find a work study job that fits that, which is really cool as well, getting to build up your resume and your bank account.
These all sounds like such cool opportunities. But it does look like that is all the time that we have today. So all the students watching, please join me in thanking our panelists one more time for just taking the time to chat with us today and share some super cool insights about their institutions. If you all want to share the college reps, if you all want to share your contact information, I know there were a lot of unanswered questions, so you can share that in the chat and make sure that you send it to everyone and not just hosts and panelists.
I don't think we can. We don't have access
you
to send it to anyone. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can you send it to me and then I will post it? Okay. All right. Let me take a minute to do, or Brianna, if you're there still, could you actually do that while I say the last few things here? But yeah, again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. Students, I really do encourage you to reach out to these college representatives. They are, I hope, happy to answer your questions over email. And let's see, I think Brianna is gathering that information. So I'll just give her a minute to do that. But as a reminder, you can watch this recording on our YouTube page. I'll be uploading it probably this afternoon. And you can register for the next installment in this series, which is the community engagement series. So we'll have 3 other college partners who will be with us to answer more questions about their college and what community engagement looks like there. Okay, so I think Tiffany was able to send it to everybody, and so was John. So let me send Anna's, actually. Okay, paste. So there is Anna's email. So if you're a student, you can feel free to screenshot that chat. So you have their contact information. You can also just look them up on the website, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. I hope that you all have a great rest of your evening and stay safe if you're near the storm. Bye, all.
All right. Thanks. Have a
Bye,
great day,
thank
y'all.
you.